If military overstretch weakened the Roman Empire from the outside, political fragmentation and civil war hollowed it out from within. By the 4th and 5th centuries, Rome was no longer undone primarily by foreign enemies. It was undone by its inability to govern itself with unity, continuity, and legitimacy. For centuries, Roman political authority had rested on a delicate balance between imperial power, military command, and administrative tradition. This balance began to unravel as the office of emperor lost its stability. Succession ceased to follow predictable patterns. Emperors were no longer chosen through consensus or heredity, but through force. The army became the arbiter of legitimacy, and generals became emperors by acclamation. This militarization of politics proved fatal. Each successful usurpation established a precedent for the next. Ambitious commanders learned that loyalty to the reigning emperor mattered less than control of troops. Civil war became a recurring feature of Roman political life, not an exceptional crisis. Armies raised to defend the frontiers were repeatedly withdrawn to fight other Romans, leaving borders exposed and provinces undefended. The consequences were cumulative. Every civil war consumed resources that could not be replaced: men, money, and trust. Provinces were devastated by armies that treated imperial territory as enemy land. Tax revenues collapsed, recruitment faltered, and local elites lost faith in the central government's ability to protect them. The political division of the empire in 395, following the death of Theodosius III, was meant to solve these problems. By assigning separate administrations to the eastern and western halves, the imperial government hoped to improve efficiency and reduce conflict. In reality, the division institutionalized disunity. The Eastern Empire, centered on Constantinople, was wealthier, more urbanized, and more secure. The Western Empire, based first in Milan and later in Ravenna, was poorer, more rural, and more exposed. Rather than functioning as complementary halves of a single system, the two courts increasingly pursued divergent interests. Coordination broke down, especially along shared frontiers such as the Danube. This fragmentation proved disastrous when crises demanded unified action. In moments of invasion, the West often found itself abandoned by the East, not out of malice, but out of calculation. The Eastern court prioritized its own survival and stability. The West, lacking the resources to stand alone, collapsed under pressures it could no longer absorb. Within the Western Empire itself, political authority further disintegrated. Emperors were frequently minors or figureheads, while real power rested with military strongmen. Rival generals competed for influence, undermining one another rather than cooperating. Court politics became a battlefield of intrigue, assassination, and betrayal. This internal disorder had a profound psychological effect on Roman society. The empire no longer appeared as a stable guarantor of order. Loyalty to the state weakened as the state itself seemed transient and unreliable. Local leaders, bishops, landowners, military commanders began to assume responsibilities once reserved for imperial officials. Civil war did more than drain resources. It destroyed legitimacy. A government that cannot ensure orderly succession cannot command lasting allegiance. By the 5th century, many provincials saw little difference between rival claimants to the throne. Each promised stability, each delivered disruption. It is within this context that barbarian leaders gained influence. They entered a Roman world already fractured, already accustomed to shifting loyalties. Some were invited into imperial service, others exploited the chaos. In many cases, they presented themselves not as conquerors, but as alternatives to endless Roman civil war. The sack of Rome, the deposition of emperors, the collapse of central authority, these events shocked contemporaries, but they were not unexpected. They were the visible outcome of decades of political failure. Rome did not fall because it lacked rulers. It fell because it had too many, none of whom could command enduring obedience. By the time the last Western emperor was deposed in 476, imperial authority had already evaporated in practice. What remained was a title without power, a court without control, and a state without unity. Political fragmentation and civil war did not merely weaken Rome, they redefined power. Authority shifted away from the imperial center toward local and personal forms of rule. This transformation paved the way for the medieval world, in which kingship, lordship, and ecclesiastical authority replaced imperial bureaucracy. Rome did not collapse in a single moment of defeat. It fragmented, slowly, violently, and irreversibly from within.